25 minutes before 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Thursday morning here at the Paddock Mall. It is currently 81 degrees. Looks like a pretty nice day. Looks like we're going to have a nice day tomorrow for the 4th of July, in spite of the fact that many of our neighbors to the north will be dealing with the rain from Hurricane Arthur. Right now, we have some news bites to deliver to you. We take the news from the different news agencies and we abbreviate them, and then, of course, we move on to the next story. It gives you a chance as a listener to catch up on a bunch of news without spending all day trying to do that we can get on with your own life. And also, if you do want to know more of the story, we do tell you the news agency we're reading from so that you can look it up online for yourself. The first story comes from the ABC News Network, and it is about Hurricane Arthur. Arthur is officially a hurricane, the first named storm of the 2014 Atlantic hurricane season, with some coastal residents forced to evacuate and the first rain bands reaching South Carolina. The storm system, experiencing sustained winds of 75 miles per hour, was centered about 340 miles southwest of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina at 5 a.m. this morning, and is moving north at about 9 miles per hour, according to the National Weather Service's National Hurricane Center. A hurricane warning now stretches through most of North Carolina into the Virginia Beach area, with a tropical storm warning in effect for South Carolina, southern North Carolina, and the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. Mandatory evacuations will be underway this morning for Hatteras Island, North Carolina, with a state of emergency for the state's coastal areas. Arthur is expected to bring pounding rains and heavy winds, with 3 to 5 foot storm surges expected and up to 4 inches of rain in affected areas. Heavy rain should also fall along the I-95 corridor as the storm's tropical moisture interacts with the cold front.
First, it was worries over the South China Sea, Afghanistan, Libya, Mali, and Syria. Then it was Russia's annexation of Crimea and the hunt for Nigerian schoolgirls kidnapped by Boko Haram. Now the United States and its allies find themselves preparing once again for potential military action in Iraq. For U.S. defense planners already struggling to implement savage spending cuts, the last year has been one of the most demanding since the immediate aftermath of September 11, 2001 attacks. Almost every month, a new crisis has erupted, each demanding a new military deployment and resources. With the United States already stressed by more than a decade of war, some worry the strain is starting to show, reported by Reuters.
And from ABC News, a Georgia father accused in the hot car death of his 22-month-old son will head to court today, with authorities expected to outline their reasons for charging the man with murder. A judge will decide today a probable cause hearing whether the case against Justin Ross Harris can proceed. Harris is 33 years old. He told police that he forgot to drop his 22-month-old son named Cooper off at daycare before heading to work on June 18th. Cooper remained strapped in his child seat for hours. The temperature outside reached 90 degrees. Harris placed an object in the SUV at lunchtime that day and then returned to his office, disregarding the boy in the back seat, according to the police warrant. Driving home from work later, he pulled over his SUV in a shopping center parking lot, distraught. The official cause of death was hyperthermia, overheating of the body. Harris has pleaded not guilty. In the days after Cooper's death, Harris drew online support from people who believe he simply made a tragic mistake and should have the charges dropped against him because he has already suffered enough. But authorities hinted that there was more to the story. Cobb County Chief of Police John Hauser said in a statement released last week, quote, "I understand that tragic accidents similar to this one do occur, and in most cases the parent simply made a mistake that cost them the life of their child. This investigation," he goes on to say, although similar in nature to others, must be weighed on its own merit, and the facts that led our detectives to charge the father must be presented at the appropriate time during the judicial process, unquote. Some of those allegations emerged in an arrest warrant, with authorities accusing the father, as well as his wife, Leanna Harris, of searching the internet for information on child heat stroke inside cars before their son's death.
White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest acknowledged yesterday that, quote, we still have more work to do at the White House to pay men and women equally. In spite of President Obama's exhortations to private industry on the subject, new data shows that the average male White House employee is paid about $88,600, while the average female employee earns about $78,400, about 13% lower. The statistics that cited about the country is about 77 cents on the dollar, and here at the White House it's 88 cents on the dollar, Mr. Earnest said. So the White House is doing appreciatively better than the country as more broadly, but we still have more work to do at the White House, reported by the Washington Times.
From the Associated Press, Israel began moving troop reinforcements to its border with the Gaza Strip this morning, according to a statement from defense officials in that country, raising the possibility of an expanded military operation in the Palestinian territory in response to intensifying rocket barrages. The movement of tanks and artillery forces came after another night of heavy rocket fire, including barrages that struck two homes in the southern border town of Sderot, Israel's last major operation in Gaza, a territory controlled by the Hamas military group, took place in late 2012. The rocket fire comes at a time of heightened tensions following the abduction and killing of 3 Israeli teenagers in the West Bank. Israel has accused Hamas of being behind the deaths and arrested hundreds of Hamas operatives in the West Bank as part of a broad manhunt in the largest ground operation in the West Bank in nearly a decade.
An investigation into the mysterious death of an Ohio teen has highlighted the risks of caffeine powder. Logan Steiner, 18, died May 27th from what health officials are calling a caffeine overdose. The high school senior from LaGrange, Ohio, had 70 micrograms of caffeine per milliliter of blood in his system, according to Lorain County Coroner Stephen Evans. A typical coffee drinker would have 3 to 5 micrograms. After the teen's sudden death, his mother found bags of caffeine powder in his room. The brands of the powder were not disclosed, but several brands of caffeine powder are sold online. Since the powder is sold as a dietary supplement, it is not subject to the same U.S. Food and Drug Administration regulation that governs caffeinated drinks, reported by ABC.
And a woman has bared her colostomy bag while wearing a bikini in a photograph, and that photograph has become an internet sensation. Bethany Townsend decided to post some snapshots of herself in a bikini, exposing her colostomy bags for the first time, and now those photos have gone viral. The photos of the 23-year-old English makeup artist who suffers from Crohn's disease have been viewed by more than 9 million people, according to Cater's News. Townsend said the overwhelmingly positive response to her photos has inspired her to pursue a career in modeling. I didn't expect this kind of reaction at all, she said. The photo has been seen by millions of people, and it's had 190,000 likes and over 10,000 comments on Facebook. It's just gone ballistic. According to the National Institutes of Health, Crohn's disease is a condition that causes inflammation or swelling and irritation of any part of the digestive tract. Symptoms include abdominal pain, diarrhea, and rectal bleeding.
A Republican congressman from Oklahoma says he was denied access to a federal facility at Fort Sill that is housing hundreds of mostly teenage illegal immigrant children from Central America. Freshman U.S. Representative Jim Bridenstine of Tulsa says he was visiting the Army post on Tuesday when he approached the facility and was told by security that he was not allowed to enter. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is overseeing the children's care, and Bridenstine says an agency official told him he could schedule a visit in 3 weeks. Bridenstine says there's no excuse for denying him access to the facility, reported by Fox News.
And from ABC News, a suburban Denver teen fell in love with an ISIS fighter online and vowed to aid his cause in Syria, and then was arrested at an airport, according to federal authorities. Shannon Maureen Conley is 19 years old from Alvada, Colorado, was charged with conspiracy to provide material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization after FBI agents arrested her at Denver International Airport on April 8th as she tried to board a flight to Frankfurt, Germany, according to a U.S. criminal complaint and a supporting affidavit. She allegedly had connecting flights to Istanbul, Turkey, and then to Adana, Turkey, just a few hours drive from the Syrian border. Conley, licensed as a certified nurse's aide in Colorado, according to the affidavit, told investigators that she hoped to meet her online suitor in Syria and reside with him near the Turkish border as his wife and a camp nurse. Her parents told investigators her suitor was a 32-year-old Tunisian man whose name is redacted in the documents.
Target is asking its customers to not bring firearms into its stores, even where it is allowed by law. In a statement on the retailer's corporate blog, interim CEO John Mulligan said that Target wants a safe and inviting atmosphere for its shoppers and employees. This is his quote: "Bringing firearms to Target creates an environment that is at odds with the family-friendly shopping and work experience we strive to create." Target made the announcement after questions arose in recent weeks about its policy on the open carry of firearms in its stores, reported by the Las Vegas Sun.
And from the Associated Press, authorities say a section of the facade inside an underpass of the Brooklyn Bridge has collapsed, injuring 5 people. It happened just before 8 p.m. yesterday in Brooklyn during a passing thunder shower. A fire department spokesman says the collapse involved a roughly 25-foot wide section of the facade. All of the injuries were minor. It was not immediately known who was hurt. Department of Buildings inspectors is investigating. There is no word on what caused the collapse.
Exorcists now have an extra weapon in their fight against evil, the official backing of the Catholic Church. The Vatican has formally recognized the International Association of Exorcists, a group of 250 priests in 30 countries who liberate the faithful from demons. The Vatican newspaper La Verità Romano reported this week that the Vatican's Congregation for Clergy had approved the organization's statutes and recognized the group under canon law. More than his predecessors, Pope Francis speaks frequently about the devil, and last year was seen placing his hands on the head of a man supposedly possessed by 4 demons in what exorcists said was a prayer of liberation from Satan, reported by The Guardian.
From the Associated Press, an overflow crowd in a Southern California community where protesters turned back Homeland Security busloads of immigrants gave a harsh reception to federal officials behind the decision to bring them to Murrieta in the first place. Local politicians calling for secure borders proved far more popular with the crowd yesterday evening. "Send them back" was one of the cries from the crowd as they shouted down Chief Border Patrol Agent Paul Beeson after he took responsibility for transferring the Central American children and families to Murrieta from Texas, where the numbers are too much for facilities to handle. On Tuesday, the buses were rerouted an hour south to San Diego after they were met with flag-waving protesters in Murrieta. Last night's crowd gathered at a high school auditorium that seats 750 in the desert city of 100,000 people, groaned when Beeson said 4 of the immigrants had to be hospitalized, 2 with scabies and 2 with fevers.
Researchers have identified a gene that may put people at greater risk of strokes and heart attacks. Writing in PLOS One, they say the gene fault may encourage the formation of blood clots, the ultimate cause of most heart attacks and strokes. Scientists hope gene tests may help doctors one day to pinpoint individuals more likely to suffer these conditions. But experts say lifestyle factors such as smoking and exercise have the greatest influence on risk. Around 1 in 10 people in the Caucasian population carries this variation of the gene named PIA2, and researchers from King's College London reviewed more than 80 studies involving about 50,000 people, the largest analyses of this genetic fault to date, reported by the BBC.
And from the Reuters news agency, 2 years into President Barack Obama's second term, more voters say they are dissatisfied with his administration's handling of everything from the economy to foreign policy, giving him the worst marks of any modern U.S. president, according to information released in a poll yesterday. In a survey of 1,446 registered voters, 33% said Obama was the worst president since World War II, while 28% pointed to his predecessor, George W. Bush, as the worst. The poll by Quinnipiac University is cited. The voters were split over which of the two most recent presidents has done a better job, with 39% saying Obama has been a better president than Bush, 40% saying Obama is worse. Most voters said Ronald Reagan, who served 2 terms in the 1980s, was the best president since 1945.
More than 1 in 5 consumers say they rarely or never use a designated driver while away from home and drinking. This is according to a recent AAA Consumer Pulse survey that, for lack of a better term, constitutes a sobering reminder of AAA Auto Group's observation that its tow-to-go program is still necessary. It will be up and running for the 4th of July holiday. AAA and Bud Light officials say they strongly encourage motorists to plan ahead before they celebrate Independence Day. They're adding that they'll offer tow-to-go as a last resort for those who need a safe ride home. Whether you're a AAA member or not, you can call for a tow-to-go ride anytime this weekend, July 4th through July 6th. AAA will then safely transport you and your vehicle home or somewhere safe within 10 miles. Since its inception in 1998, AAA officials say tow-to-go has safely removed more than 23,000 intoxicated drivers from the roads. The service is designated to be used as a last resort. It is offered based on availability of AAA drivers and tow trucks during times of high call volumes, reported by the Florida News Network.
And from CNN, Qantas Airlines Flight 94 to Melbourne had to turn back to Los Angeles about an hour into its trip yesterday morning when a water pipe started leaking on the upper deck of the plane, according to Australia's Channel 7 network. The jet is an Airbus A380, the world's only complete double-decker airplane. Video from the network showed water running down the aisle of the plane. The water made its way through the floor and showered economy class passengers below, according to the report. Crew members moved passengers and gave them blankets to stay dry. Qantas said the passengers were never in any danger and they're being put up in hotels while the airline talks to the plane's manufacturer, Airbus, about what might have caused the leak.
The House is no longer requiring lawmakers to report some free trips they take on the annual forms that they file about their personal finances. The change was not publicly announced, but was described in an instruction book on how to fill out the forms. Legislators will have to continue reporting details about their travel on the House Clerk's website. That information is publicly available and is more specific than the one line that, until now, they have been providing on their financial disclosure reports. The House Ethics Committee did not initially provide an explanation for the change, reported by the Las Vegas Sun.
And from the Washington Times, the Obama administration's just released criminal complaint against the alleged mastermind of the Benghazi terrorist attacks provides a final contradiction to its own evolving explanations for what happened that day. The Justice Department's indictment spells out a calculated conspiracy by Ahmed Abu Khattala and associates to attack the U.S. diplomatic mission and CIA annex, which killed 4 Americans. The indictment might be viewed as a death knell for a theory that the attack resulted from a spontaneous protest against a U.S.-produced video. Now in custody, Khattala was a commander of Ansar al-Sharia in Benghazi, a U.S.-designated terrorist group, and is himself deemed a global terrorist by the State Department.
50 years after the United States banned discrimination with the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the state of equality in America is hardly settled. Barack Obama Obama has been elected the nation's first black president. Some have declared that America has outgrown racism and that the protections set in motion by the seminal Civil Rights Act are no longer needed. Voting rights and affirmative action have been rolled back by the Supreme Court in the past year. Yet America's gay and transgender community is still struggling for protection from discrimination and the right to marry. Many working women are still paid less than men, reported by UPI.
And from CBS, scientists who reported that they had found a startlingly simple way to make stem cells withdrew that claim yesterday, admitting to extensive errors in the research. In 2 papers published in January in the journal Nature, the Japanese and American researchers said they had been able to transform ordinary mouse cells into versatile stem cells by exposing them to a mildly acidic environment. Scientists hope to harness stem cells to grow replacement tissue for treating a variety of diseases. While scientists have long been able to perform such transformations with a different method, the newly reported technique was far simpler, and the paper gained wide notice and some skepticism in the research community. It was also widely reported in the media, according to this report, and that includes the Associated Press.
Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi has urged the UK to stay in the European Union, hours after the UKIP leader Nigel Farage promised the UK was close to exiting. Addressing the European Parliament in Strasbourg yesterday as Italy started its 6-month presidency of the European Union, Mr. Renzi said, "Europe without the UK would not only be less rich, but less Europe and less itself." His positive speech about Europe's prospects came hours after Mr. Farage told the Parliament that the UK was closer now to exiting than ever and called the Parliament a museum, reported by The Telegraph.
And this is from CNN. Chrysler Group is taking muscle cars to steroid-crazed levels with its new V8 engine. The Dodge Challenger SRT, with the optional Hellcat engine available starting in the fall, will put a total of 707 horsepower under the hoods. This will be the most powerful muscle car ever, according to Chrysler. The Challenger SRT Hellcat will have an 8-speed automatic transmission or a 6-speed manual transmission. It will be competing against cars like General Motors' Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 with its 580 horsepower V8 and the 662 horsepower Ford Shelby GT500, which recently went out of production. A Ford spokesman would not comment on its competitor's car, but a new Shelby GT500 with potentially more power is expected to be revealed sometime soon.
China's government and media have launched a broadside attack against Japan's move to loosen the bonds on its powerful military, casting it as a threat to Asian security. The criticism came a day after the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said his cabinet had formally endorsed a reinterpretation of a constitutional clause that bans the use of armed force except in narrowly defined circumstances. This is his quote, "We urge Japan to follow its path of peaceful development and be prudent in handling relevant issues, honestly respect the legitimate security concerns of Asian countries, and refrain from doing anything which may jeopardize regional peace and stability," reported by The Guardian.
And from the BBC, Iran has supplied Iraq with attack jets to help it counter an offensive by Sunni rebels led by the Islamist group ISIS. Strong evidence suggests Russia supplied an initial delivery of the aircraft just a few days ago, but analysts at the International Institute for Strategic Studies in London say that a further delivery on the 1st of July originates from Iran. This means that the United States, which has also sent aircraft to Iraq, is operating alongside Iran in this conflict. The U.S. has deployed drones and helicopters to Iraq and is actively gathering intelligence on the advance by the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, also known as ISIS. Washington is also supplying Iraq's existing Air Force with Hellfire missiles.
And the Obama administration is stepping up security for some flights headed to the United States from Europe and the Middle East, reflecting heightened concern that terrorists are developing more sophisticated explosives designed to avoid airport screening. Reported by CNN.
And that's all the time we have for News Bites. Remember, we do this each weekday morning between 8:35 and 9. We refrain as much as possible from offering our own commentary. I think we did pretty good in that regard today. And it gives you a chance to hear as much news as possible in a short period of time. Robin, how many stories today?
27.
27 stories. All right, we will take a little break, and Veterans News is up next. This is The Source, WOCA Ocala.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Karen McHugh. June jobs numbers are out. Unemployment has dropped to 6.1% from 6.3%. 288,000 jobs are added. North Carolina is bracing for its first hurricane of the season. Arthur, a Category 1 storm, currently packing sustained winds of 75 miles per hour. FEMA says don't ignore the warnings.
Heed the evacuation orders. Stay out of the water. A lot of people out there with surf conditions that are very dangerous. They're not very good at this. Think they are, and unfortunately, we lose people from being out in the water during these storms.
Administrator Craig Fugate. Arthur is expected to hit the Outer Banks around midnight. Amid fears that terrorists may learn to build an undetectable bomb, U.S. officials are demanding tighter security at some foreign airports.
The U.S. says there's no immediate threat, but there have been reports of Al-Qaeda affiliates in Syria stepping up efforts to get explosives onto planes.
Fox Radio's Simon Owen. Fox News. We report. You decide.
Napa supports the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. And this month, we're making it easy for you to show your support too. Make any $25 purchase, and you'll receive a free Napa racing cap. For every cap we give out, we'll donate $1 to the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, supporting those who serve you. That's Napa Know-How. At participating Napa Auto Parts stores while supplies last. Offer expires 7/31/14.
Sunday on Lifetime. Past secrets always come knocking.
Someone came through that portal.
Darkness.
He betrayed us once and you can never trust him.
This
is all some sort of payback.
Rising.
You got powers now. Use them.
Witches of East End. New season. Sunday at 9/8 Central on Lifetime.
Some things were just meant to go together, like fathers and sons.
But it's going to be Dale Earnhardt Jr. using lessons learned from his father to go from 6th to 1st and score them.
Like front bumpers and rear bumpers.
Here comes Carl Edwards. He's got momentum. David Gilliland giving him a shove to the inside of the body.
Like kings and crowning achievements.
Petty wins his 200th career NASCAR victory.
Yes, some things just go together, like July 4th weekend and the Coke Zero 400 powered by Coca-Cola. See if Dale Earnhardt Jr. can join the handful of legends to sweep the season at Daytona International Speedway. Plus a free pre-race